What am I to do?
Welcome to He Said, She Said Razor Branding Podcast with Michael Russo and Jaci Russo. To learn more about how to improve your brand, visit brandRUSSO.com.
Michael, every week I think about how to annoy you more with the introduction that I'm going to perform. And so today, my Easter gift to you is to just say, welcome to the podcast.
Now, see, what was wrong with that? There was no hi or welcome.
No, but it was watching your fear of anticipation of what I might do that made it so joyful.
I was
so
wondering.
to all of you, welcome. I do think you're going to enjoy this conversation with Bryce. With whether you work in manufacturing, professional service, banking, whatever your B2B vibe might be, heck, you might even be on the B2C side. This conversation to me is a great encapsulation of agency to client side, B2C to B2B, and really boiling it down to the thing that matters, which is capturing the customer's voice and making sure you're talking to them about something that they care about.
Absolutely. No, and it was funny because it was, we've had a couple of banks marketers on here, but we really didn't talk much about, specifically bank marketing. It was marketing in general. And I think it was very purposeful. And he had a wealth of knowledge, both in and out of the industry, and what it comes down to at the end is marketing, and you put it in any industry, there's some certain principles that follow, and understanding your audience, understanding who you are, understanding what you're providing, finding those connections, both emotionally and just within your service line, those are important vitals that you have to have.
And those transcend industry, as you just said, and being an agency that's pretty industry agnostic. One of the reasons why we've always avoided zeroing in on one niche and just being financial services or just being healthcare is I think we would start to do what a lot of agencies I see do in that challenge is you regurgitate. It starts to become too industry standard. So what I love about these conversations is when we get to rotate from industry to industry and expert to expert is it's new ideas. And you realize, we just spent an hour talking to a bank marketer, but not about bank marketing. It's just about good marketing. And that's the takeaway that I hope everybody leaves with.
Absolutely.
So y'all stick around and listen to our chat with Bryce.
When the day is through.
Bryce, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Thanks for being here. So maybe we start with you telling our listeners a little bit about what you do.
Yeah. So I'm Bryce McCuin, Director of Marketing, currently with BankSouth. We are located in Georgia. So we have 10 locations. I'm based in Lake Oconee, which is Greensboro, Georgia. Not a lot of people realize there's a Greensboro, Georgia, but it's halfway between Atlanta and Augusta. So we have 2 locations there. We also have locations in the Athens area. Go Dogs, have to throw that in there as an alumni. Atlanta, Savannah. We just opened our latest facility at the Hyundai Motor Group Metaplant America. Say that fast 3 times.
Right.
The Hyundai manufacturing EV and electrified vehicle manufacturing facility that's in Ellabelle, Georgia, which is just outside of Savannah. So that was a Bank at Work program that we launched. So we have a branch inside that massive facility, which was a really cool marketing project.
Yeah.
And then in October, we acquired State Bank of Cochran, which has a few different divisions that we acquired there. So it's State Bank of Cochran, First Lawrence Bank, which is in Dublin and Dexter, Georgia, and Community Bank of Johnson County, which is in Wrightsville, Georgia. So we've been very busy. We are growing, and so it's a really exciting time. You see a lot of acquisition that's occurring within this industry. So we've been fortunate to be on the acquire side, but we've really it's been an exciting journey. And prior to that, I've worked in a few different industries, which I think just from our prior discussions.
Right.
I had my own agency. I worked for a third party logistics provider and worked for a luxury real estate development. And so I've done a number of different things, but always been in marketing, have always loved marketing. And my biggest passion is my family. So I'm married. I've got 4 boys, and So I don't really have much time for more outside of that.
Now, look, I said oof, not for the four. We have four also, but the
Um,
boys, that just sounds
yeah,
like loud, rambunctious, things breaking, dirty pants. That's what I see.
for sure. All of the above. Yeah. Laundry never stops.
Right.
Neither do dishes. So that's just
No.
always happening.
And I mean, I'm imagining you have to take out some sort of a HELOC every month for the food bill.
Yeah. Yeah. It's we pay the mortgage and the food bill are about the same, about the equal payment.
Yeah, so we did one boy and three girls, and I got to tell you, those girls eat just as much as those boys. So same thing for us. It was like, that's a pretty big food bill. It was amazing
Yeah.
how much cheaper life got when they all went to college and got off the payroll. It was like, oh, you
Yeah.
can go out to eat for less than the price of a used car.
And
Well,
that
yeah,
was
I mean,
debatable, by the way. The boy ate 3 times as much as the girls when he was in high school. Just
yeah.
yeah, I don't know what
Fair.
yours are, but the older they get, the more they consume.
Well, and then there's like trends. So it's like they absolutely love this particular bar. And then like 2 weeks later, it's like, yeah, we don't like that anymore. And I'm like, well, I just bought 4 cases of it. So I guess I'll give this to the homeless shelter. I mean, like, so it's, it's a constant battle. But yeah, we're regulars of Costco. I can tell
Oh,
you that.
yeah.
I'll give them a plug here.
You have to be.
Yeah. Yeah, for
What
sure.
That's awesome.
I see the Augusta shirt. I take it you've been
Mhm.
at least once or twice.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And we're about a little over an hour from Augusta. So, the tournament's next week. So it's a very special time in this area. You have a lot of people that come out to this area and play golf, stay at the Ritz-Carlton, which is right up the road from our location, and they'll drive out for the tournament. And so it always just really kicks off. It's the end of seasonal depression and the beginning of golf and lake season. So, spring is just such a beautiful time of year here.
Well, and I was just looking at your website. I mean, you go from Greensboro, Atlanta, Savannah to Athens area. Those are like I'm familiar with most of them. They're beautiful areas. They're gorgeous in Georgia. How do you branch from? And I'm jumping right in the deep end, I guess, but from these more community-centric areas to Atlanta, which is a huge metroplex, right? So, it's a different approach, I would think, right? Getting in there and how you tackle those things, how you approach your audiences, how you sell your products, right?
Yeah, it's very challenging when you look at Atlanta and Savannah and the growth, that has taken place just in recent years. Making a marketing statement can be very difficult. If you just go in and try to advertise and spend, I mean, your spending money is going to be, your budget's going to be depleted pretty quickly if you do a lot of, traditional marketing in those larger markets. So we've really just taken, we've really leaned into the relationship side and really worked hard to define exactly, where we're good, and then try to find more of those type relationships. So taking more of a rifle approach as opposed to a cannon shot in terms of what we do, specifically within Atlanta. We're very fortunate in that our mortgage division, BankSouth Mortgage, is headquartered in Atlanta in the Buckhead area. So our branch is actually in that facility, which is called the Forum. And so a lot of referrals will come from the mortgage side. So obviously a lot of homes are selling. So, having the opportunity to gain referrals from those relationships, has been helpful for us. But there's plenty of opportunities. So I think it's just making sure we're very strategic in terms of how we approach our marketing in those larger markets and know that, what we're presenting is well aligned for what we can offer.
Yeah, I have family that lives in Buckhead. That's some very nice homes there.
Yeah.
There's some very nice homes there.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I would imagine as a smaller, more community-oriented bank, you run into what so many of our guests face, which is that challenge of the bigger national organizations that have more tech, more power, bigger budgets. And so how do you go head to head with them?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can. I mean, like in some situations, I mean, my budget is certainly not going to compare to, some of the other global recognized ones. So I think, you want to really focus in on that relationship. And, I think from a lot of community banks will say the same thing. I mean, that's, the general message is, we care about community. But I think, truly defining the relationship and, building on the relationship helps to lead to, more business and referrals and things like that. So, I mean, we've seen a lot of that. I think um, you know, one of the things I've always said is, we don't just sponsor the 5K, we run it with you, so
Nice.
it's not just writing a check. I mean, it's, truly being invested in the people that we work with. And
Right.
it's not always about business, right? So, I mean, you can help somebody with a loan, but if there's a particular service that somebody needs, if you've got the relationships to help aid them, if they're starting a business and they need, expertise, to be able to guide them and have the relationships to leverage, especially when someone's coming into a new area. To me, that's not paid work, but it's still valuable. So, I think we've just really, done a great job, and even expanding into new markets like Savannah. I mean, we've got a good example there. We've got a great group there, a board of advisors that we work with, some fantastic people that really just are ambassadors that help go out into the community and, look for opportunities. And so it's, it's relationships that expand out and help, develop new relationships. And, and from a marketing standpoint, I think that helps just to communicate out authentically, that we have true relationships and circles of influence. And that really establishes credibility because, a lot of what's happening, with the larger institutions that I've seen, you got rates, you got special rates, you've got, a lot of marketing items that go out there that can be service specific, rate specific, general, there's stock images of people happy and smiling. What we try to do from our standpoint is just highlight actual human beings that people recognize. So, when you go into the market, it's, finding the people there within that market so that you're, really marketing a true reflection of the community, not just, leading with service and leading with rates and things like that.
Right. I was really impressed by what Capital One did with their Capital One cafes. That felt like one of those kinds of, it's not just promising products and rates, it's really differentiating. It's doing something different. And so I've been into a couple of them, and it does feel like they're trying. How does that play for you? I mean, do you feel like they're stepping on community bank toes? Is that just a big investment that a community bank can't make? What's your take on that?
No, I like that. I mean, I think that kind of falls in line a little bit with the Chick-fil-A approach,
Yes.
and we actually did a campaign recently called Why I Bank South. So, we brought in our customers, and so we did testimonials. But the approach that we took was like, let's not just do a staged, polished testimonial. Let's pull the cameras back and actually show, the mics, show the lighting setup, and just make this conversational. And my whole thing, when we set that up is, it's like what we're doing here, right? I mean, you don't want an interview to feel like somebody memorized their lines. You want to, get to the bottom of, how do these people genuinely feel? What was their experience when they first came aboard? Why did they come bank with us in the first place? And to me, that's really gold because, one of the stories we had was during COVID with the PPP loans, that were going out to assist businesses. She came to us because she'd made a few phone calls, and we were the first people to call back. And when she would make calls, the person she knew was going to answer the phone each time. And I mean, those to me are very little things, but they're important. And so, I think where we start to lose sight of things in marketing is, we really get focused on technology and how it can aid us. But a lot of times we forget about, what it is we're doing in the first place. And that's trying to serve our customers. So, if the technology is not working to help, better serve the customer, then, we need to start over and reevaluate what we're doing. So, I love that they take that approach. And I certainly, think that's fantastic because, it's sitting down with actual people that trust your brand and getting to know more about them and how you can leverage that, to go find others.
For sure. And I think that, there's a way to, and I think y'all are doing it, to let the customer be the story, because that's going to be the magnet that attracts other customers. That's why testimonials and case studies are so important. And so when they can go beyond just talking about products and price and talk about experience and service and somebody who really, I had a situation today. Okay. We use a couple different banks here at the business for a lot of different reasons. One is a very small community bank and one is a larger, more regional bank. And so we're launching a new project, made a deposit. I knew there was going to be a hold. It was going to be a whole thing. And so, but I know my banker. And so I was able to, from the deposit line, send an email that said, hey, there's not going to be a hold for this, right? He goes, well, standard 10 days, but I'll wait it for you. That's what you want from your banker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, it's like somebody's going to take care of you. And
Right.
that's what I feel like people miss sometimes because they just stay with the big bank that has the online products that are so robust, but they don't have the human connection.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
I love the way community banks are able to do more for people. I just think it's good. That's about brand building.
Well, and another example, like this just popped in my head when you said that, but I have a guy that I've known for a really long time, and he has always been hesitant because he's like, I don't think the community bank can do the things that I want to do. So I've just never gone there. We've actually had people come knock on the door. And so when I came to work here, he decided to come over. The only reason he decided to come over is because and I'm not going to mention the bank, but it was a large bank that would not provide this particular service. And we had it. So he came over and we had lunch afterward. He's like, I was absolutely amazed at how I was treated through the entire process. It changed everything I thought and what I had in my mind. So I'm sitting here thinking, well, it took 10, 20 years for him to make that decision.
Right.
So it's like, you just never, everybody has some sort of preconceived notion in terms of what something might be. But that's just the challenge I think in this industry we face is, just give us the chance. All we need is a chance. And have that cup of coffee, have that, have that lunch, and we can get you whatever you need or get you started. But yeah, I mean that's it's very common.
Yeah. One of the challenges that I hear pretty regularly is the marketer is separated from the customer. And so the customer may have a personal banker, they may have a lender, they may have a favorite teller. They don't necessarily have a favorite marketer in the marketing department. And so have you developed a process to be able to hear those customer stories and use them in your marketing materials?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've really been focused on just in the time that I've been here, because I was new coming into banking, I wasn't new to marketing. And I think that's a good thing, right? Because you get somebody that comes in that has to spend some time to truly understand how the operation works and, who the customers are. But a lot of times I spend just going to the different areas and learning what each of these, individuals do. I mean, these people that are on the front lines that deal with the customers on a regular basis, what are people struggling with? What are people telling you? What are people seeing? And I think, that taking that time is extremely important to help you understand, what's going on. And, there's just so much value in talking to all of these bankers that work so hard and provide all these services. And, you can do surveys, but, you're only going to get so much information. So I've just found, even with customers, I mean, taking the time to sit down in person, you can extract so much valuable material that you can leverage. And we get so busy and so caught up. I just think it's extremely important for marketers to get into, I mean, if they're working for a business, on the front lines and experience that from time to time. I mean, it just does so much to help you understand, what's going on.
Well, for sure. And it's so I know that a lot of marketers face that siloed separation of church and state kind of challenge when they don't know the customers well enough to capture those stories, and other people aren't feeding it to them. So I love that you've been able to navigate those little quicksands and be able to kind of get to the root of the stories, because branding is nothing if it's not emotional storytelling, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you shifted from B2C to B2B, which is one of our favorite things to talk about, because we think B2B lacks some B2C to it. And so when we've got that kind of B2C backbone fueling a B2B campaign, it tends to be better because B2C does emotional branding better. And so how have you been surprised by the differences in how you've had to approach measurement, accountability, just the transition from B2C to B2B? What's that been like for you?
Yeah, I think, I've given this a little bit of thought. To me, B2C is very emotional driven.
Yes.
And so I think a lot of times marketers they don't even factor in the emotion that B2B is, you're still dealing with human beings, right? I mean, those are still people that have to have, that have emotions, they have anxieties, they have fears and things like that. The best example for B2B is probably when I was when I was in the third party logistics realm. Decision times are, so much longer, and there's so much detail that's involved, because it's all about trust, right? I mean, when you're shifting that much of, the shipping and logistics side of your business over, there's a lot of risk that's involved with that.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have a lot of trust that it's going to be, handled the right way, but it's also going to be a long-term relationship, because you don't have to end up doing it, another 6 months, packing everything up and shipping it out the door, developing a new relationship. So I think it's been extremely valuable for me just in going through the B2B part, to really learn how to have an effective customer journey, to really get down into the weeds, into the details, make sure that the communications are on point. And I think it just makes you a better marketer when you go through that process and learn how to present the company in a way that it can be trusted for the long term.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. It's interesting because I think you've got that perspective, that unique perspective twice. You've got the B2C, B2B perspective, which I think is so helpful. And then you've got agency to client side perspective, which can be so helpful. So what are your biggest aha moments, I guess both good and bad, in terms of having been in-house, agency side and now in-house? How does it make you deal with agencies differently? What do you wish they knew? What do you wish you had known when you were agency side about being a client? Like, tell me how your perspective has shifted.
Yeah. I'm so glad that I worked, on the agency side, because I think it really makes me, have a lot more empathy.
Yes.
I think empathy is extremely important. And I managed up to, at one point, 25, 30 different clients, and it was
by yourself, just you,
and it was
30 clients,
because I was good at it, right? And it's like,
dude,
I think that's what happens is you start seeing certain people are successful, so you start stacking more and more and more, but that can be very dangerous. And so the reason, and I'm not, patting myself on the back, but it's just I had a knack for taking the time to really, work with the client and understand, what it is that they needed and what could make them successful. And a lot of the businesses that I'm working with, they truly are taking a hard look at that money. Not that no one, others don't, but the larger business, it's one line item. When you're talking about a mom and pop,
it's the whole bucket.
That whole family spent a significant amount of time before they decided they were going to write that check. So, and as my favorite college football coach, Kirby Smart, says, pressure is a privilege, so
right.
If you're feeling pressure, then that means you're probably doing something right. So, you want to help, these businesses, big, or small, to be successful. And so, but at the same time, you've got to run a business. So scope creep is real. And, as I'm sure are well aware, some clients can dig a little bit more into that allotment of hours. And, but I think I gave this a lot of thought, just, again, after our discussion, and, the misalignment is what's key. If you're not coming to terms and you're spending a lot of time trying to make a relationship work, and you're really just wasting money,
Right.
So you just got to make that decision. Are we getting where we need to? Is this relationship, effective? Are we meeting the needs for the business, or is this just not working? And that's okay if it's not, but you just have to make that decision. And I usually look at it, just in terms of data, or, in leading a team, it's, how's the team feeling? And if the numbers aren't working and the team is not feeling good about it, then it's time to pull the plug, right? If there's an issue with data, but the team feels good, then let's take a look at the data. Let's see how we can fix that. So I think it's, like I said, misalignment, recognizing that, and just not spending time trying to fix a relationship that's just not, in the best interest of both parties.
Yeah. How did you handle scope creep? What were your tools ahead of time, in the middle of it, and then getting out of it? What were your tactics?
I think you've got to address it. I mean, it's, setting that boundary, in a professional way. And it's just, I think if that becomes a regular conversation, then that has to get elevated, but it's going to happen most likely. And I think with good relationships, it can. And that's the other part too, is just communication. You asked me about how I handle it. Like, look, if I'm pushing too hard, just let me know. We can have a conversation. I'm totally reasonable, but I think sometimes we just are afraid to even have the conversation.
Right.
And it's like, let's just bring it up. Look, if I'm going too far, then put some boundaries on me, and that's fine. We'll roll it into next month. But if things are going well, that's just a conversation to be had.
Yeah. No, and I love that. And I think all too often, especially younger, newer account service people, they don't understand how important the boundaries are. Clear communication at the beginning, boundaries through the relationship, because they don't want to say no. Account service people by their nature are people pleasers and yes men and women. And so, but that yes ends up being the worst thing. It's not really serving, because you're burning your creative team out. You're missing deadlines with the client. I mean, it's more disastrous than it is beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've learned too, just another important point that I think, and I'm sure you and Michael will love this, but be a good client, right? Be very clear and outline exactly what it is you want to do. Right. Because the problem, and this isn't just the agency client relationship, this is marketing department and operation, is, we just will float things out there and, go figure it out. Or, I know what I want, but I just can't articulate it. Well, that's not very fair. Right. I mean,
I'll know it when I see it. That's Michael's favorite phrase.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, that's not helpful. So be very intentional, in terms of what it is, what your expectations are, and then let, the agency or let the marketing department go do what they do.
Right.
And it's a common issue. It happens often. But if you don't have a well drawn out plan, then the expectation needs to be reasonable, right?
Yeah, it ends up being more of a Frankenstein approach, because if everybody's not on the right page and thinking the same way, you're putting pieces together that don't always match. And you end up going down the path of, like, again, you end up with a Frankenstein where you got pieces of everything, and then it's not what it started or what it meant to be. It's not what the agency wants, not what the client wants. Nope. There has to be you brought the word trust. It's just so important to have that, and we talk about banking in particular, we're talking about, B2C and B2B type industries, but I think B2B is even harder because, from the client standpoint, because when they're coming to you with needs, they're pretty serious. Like they're investing in something, right? They're taking out a loan for something really big. They're making a move. They're doing something they haven't done before. They're expanding. They're doing something. They're investing in something larger than what they had the day before. So there's a lot of risk involved. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of, and is this going to work out? And it's out of my control now. It's up to these people that I'm trusting to help me with this process, and
Mhm.
and not that it's any different than buying a home or anything like that, but for the business, you're driving with no directions, like, there's so many people depending on you. It's beyond just your family unit. It could be a company of 10 to 20 to 30 to hundreds of people. And
Mhm.
those decisions are very heavy. They're heavy lifting, right? And so
Mhm.
now you're part of that equation. And so
Yeah.
there's just a responsibility with that comes with the territory,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, I think just going back to what we were talking about earlier, you even if you can't assist in certain areas, I mean, I think those relationships, being able to facilitate and make those connections, can be worthwhile. And we can't be all things to all people, but we certainly can, assist and help, where possible. And so I think, the what you were talking about in terms of those, situations, that's goes back to earlier. I mean, you're not going to log in and go to an AI chatbot to figure out what you need. Yeah, most likely. So,
Well, you can, but you're not going to get very good help.
you're only going to get so far. And so I think there's a comfort to having, not that I would be the person to go to. Let me just disclaimer that. But Bryce McCuin, I hit the call, and and then you've got it's just the trust that I talked about. It's the trust, and you want to make sure you feel comfortable and confident that you can go in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure. I'm still just trying to get my head wrapped around you managing 30 clients at a time. That is an impressively large number.
Yeah,
Did you
yeah.
just not sleep? Did you never leave the office?
I had, yeah, I mean, it truly was from the moment I would log in until logging out. I mean, there was very little, and that's where it became an issue because there
Yeah.
wasn't that time in between. And, I think there's so much value in having some disconnection and just, letting the brain kind of do its thing and
Yeah.
come up with some ideas and some things. And obviously, I don't have a lot of time, you know, when I go home with the 4 kids
Right.
situation we talked about and 3 dogs. I left that part out. Um, I'm a man of commitment. I can tell you, I can tell you that much. But yeah, it was. It just became too much of a grind, and
Yeah.
but I'm the kind of person where like you learn from everything.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't learn from it, then it's a failure. And
Right.
I wouldn't consider that to be a failure. I would just consider it to be a stepping stone to where I'm at now, and I've been able to leverage what I learned there, to be better, in certain areas of this job. So I think you just have to, make sure you learn. And boundaries has been an issue, no doubt, for me. And so that certainly has been something to focus on as well.
Right. So, having done both sides and appreciating the scope creep, the boundaries, the communication, all the different pieces, how do you decide when to push back on an agency's recommendation versus when to trust their expertise, particularly when it comes to content, strategy, marketing elements, brand planning, brand auditing, all those different pieces? Does the answer change? And what is kind of your approach?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's I should know the strategy. I should know the business, and what our goals, what we hope to accomplish. Um, Oftentimes with outsourcing, what we do is look for you know someone that is really good in a particular craft, and so I think it's understanding the balance between I know what we're looking to accomplish holistically, but I don't know this particular craft, and you are an expert in that. So I need to trust that you will do a great job in taking that and aligning with what we're hoping to accomplish, from a strategic standpoint. What I think becomes an issue is when, you have these discovery calls or, and people come in and they just immediately start talking about all the things you're doing wrong. Or, I'm just, what I look for typically is more interview approach, like, asking me questions, like asking me stupid questions, but ask me like what it is that we're suffering, where our pain points are. And then we start talking about how, that can be addressed.
Right.
And if I get onto a call and I'm get the feeling that they spent 20 minutes looking at the website, before we jumped on, then we've got a problem, right? So it's, I think it's just being very intentional in terms of what it is they, can do to assist from a strategic standpoint with, their expertise and how, that can be aligned well.
Right. I mean, you want someone with natural curiosity. I think that's what
Mhm.
marketers should
Yep.
have. So
Yep.
I'm not showing up talking about me. I'm not
Mhm.
showing up talking about how wrong you are. We should listen first. We should ask questions. We should learn challenges, and then we should present solutions.
Yeah. I mean, bingo. I mean, curiosity, that's it. I mean, that's how I continue to try to be. And I think, when you're with an organization for a long time, you got to be very careful not to ever lose that.
Correct.
And so I think you're exactly right. I think all marketers should continuously be curious, and we're in an extremely disruptive time right now.
Yes.
And so you can either choose to be scared or you can continue to be curious and figure out, exactly how this can be, helpful in terms of your approach to, being a better marketer.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you're right. The times call for a lot of curiosity and a lot of patience. I think people rush to
Patience.
judgment.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of patience.
Lots of patience. Lots of patience.
There's a hint of fear too.
Well, there is. And look, I think fear is not a bad thing. I think that fear helps people pace themselves on the patience part, and really get to a place where it's like, okay, knowing that we're in such a time of change, what do we need to go learn? Curiosity to be better with the new tools that are being presented to us.
Well,
Yeah.
I think there's skepticism that comes at all across both sides, especially with our clients. I've found over the past many years of, you have all this new data, these new resources, new opportunities out there, and there are opportunities, but knowing which one to trust, knowing, and generally I talk about this a lot, like, every time we take on a new client, usually it's on the rebound because they've left something else to come to us, and so we're already dealing with something maybe didn't go well. And they're already skeptical about the process or about what are you going to do for me or where am I going to be when I'm done with the process or the engagement. And it's, there's that you have to overcome right away. You have to earn trust, earn your keep, earn that there's going to be a relationship that's worth, thriving for. And, but then again, all that data that's coming in, what do you do with it? How does it drive you? How do you interpret it? It can be so helpful, but also very polarizing in a way. It's like, well, this is telling me this or this. And then, so you end up maybe doing too heavy in the strategy and too little in the creative, or vice versa. It's all creative and no strategy. Or, you're basing, all right, am I going completely digital, but my audience is very localized, and how do I tap into all these new things? So all those things come into play. So it is a trying time, I think, in sorting through the minutia of everything that's going on, just from a marketing standpoint, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, the data can always be a scary discussion. And, when you start, looking at numbers and people start pointing at numbers, and now there's things that are going to be coming out, I don't know if you guys have heard of artificial intelligence. You ever heard of this?
Wait, is that the AI thing people keep talking about?
Yeah, I'm sorry. AI. Yeah, that's the name of it.
I've heard a thing or two mentioned.
So, that's obviously been a huge thing, and not to shift gears, but I mean, obviously this is going to transition well into this topic, but we've been very fortunate to partner with a company, Sequence, that helps us, with artificial intelligence, and they've got engineers that they've been able to embed. So we've been able to really, look at several projects and work with some very talented folks in this. So I'm very fortunate in being able to do that. But I think, it's a little bit humbling. And I think a lot of marketers have imposter syndrome right now, and it's like, am I really, what is it that I actually bring, to the table, with all these things and all these capabilities. And so, I mean, I think, when you start to really dig into these things, it's really not letting that fear, overpower, but understanding how, you sort of just shift your approach and shift your mindset. And, like with prompting and, a lot of these things that you can do really, I'm amazed at the efficiencies that it can create. And so you got to kind of let your ego get out of the way. Like I love design and I've done a lot of art direction, and AI has really challenged me. And, it's like everybody's a designer now, it's like, look what I created with AI. And, I've learned to just sort of temper that frustration and start to look at, okay, well, look at how much time I was wasting, not necessarily wasting, but a lot of time developing a lot of these things that really had the branding defined, and you can use these tools to create these nice visuals very quickly. And then that frees you up to do more things like focus on the strategy, focus on the issues that data's uncovering. And so then you're like, well, okay, that's a very good thing. Right. And so I think it's really changing the mindset of marketers. And I think the ones that embrace it and not, let the fear overpower and start to figure out, how they maneuver differently in this world are going to be the ones that are successful.
Yeah, I think we talk about this a lot. It comes up in every conversation in every industry because it's disrupting everyone.
Yeah.
And a lot of it comes down to, I think, being a good editor and being a good art director in a way, is being somebody who knows when to say yes and no, somebody who knows when to say stop, somebody who knows what's good and what's bad, because it'll give you a lot. And staying on brand, staying on message, all those things, that's when you need accountability of the person at the end of the line, to say, yes, this is working for us and this is staying where we started until you decide to go another direction, I mean, as a branding agency, we really focus a lot on that. Like once we start something, are we staying there the whole time? Because consistency is so important, right?
Yeah.
And nowadays everybody wants to change every week because, what used to be you do a campaign for 6 months and it would have, 3 radio, 3 TV, 3 this, and you'd run it for 6 months and then you may pivot at that point. That's every week now, sometimes every day. And it's so easy to say, all right, we need something new today. I'm like, well, yeah, but we haven't even saturated what we started. We haven't gotten deep in there. So sometimes it's a matter of stay in the course, and those decisions are hard to make in the middle of it all because you're reacting to things. You're reacting to somebody saying, we only got 3 likes on this post, so it must not be good.
Yeah.
Well, what's the algorithm telling you? I mean, like maybe there's, maybe it was seen more than people liked and maybe it got more than you needed, so all those things are reactionary and it can very easily cause you to be all over the place, Yeah.
And I think like staying true when you believe in something and, cause sometimes the numbers will follow. I mean, to your point, maybe it's not, extremely successful from a number standpoint initially, but, over time, those things can come. And I think it can be dangerous to just shift gears too fast, but attention spans are just so short. And so I think that those are some of the things that that I do worry about. I think a lot of it too is the ease of starting a lot of these easy tasks like writing a press release. I mean, when I was coming up, it would take 2 to 3 days to to get a nice release written, get the the quote that's included approved, and make sure you hit the deadline, so the paper could pick it up next week. I mean, all these different steps, and like you can spit out a press release like that. I think there's value to the thought and coming up with the ideas and feeling that stress. Like to me, to me, there's value in that. So I don't know how to, continue to have that, but like that's something just with my kids that I talk about all the time. I mean, you can't not use these tools from an efficiency standpoint, but there's a lot of value, in generating an ideation and things like that, especially under pressure. I think that kind of stuff really builds character in marketers.
Oh yeah, and I think too. I think people are so obsessed with the prompt, and they're not obsessed with what you're feeding it. Because what you're
Yeah.
feeding it sometimes is the most important thing, more than the prompt itself. Because if you're feeding it authentic information, it's going to pull from authentic information. Like if I write something and feed it that, then now it's got my thoughts, it's got my style, my tone in there, versus pulling from sources that I don't know about. And now it's coming from other brains, basically. And that's the way AI works. It's pulling from all these other sources, which is great. Yeah. But if it starts with me and a good, strong campaign idea, now everything's coming from that brain, if you will, And I think people shortcut it and they say, do this for me. And well, it's going to do something, but God knows where it's getting everything from,
Well, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Like when I tell you I want you to go do something, but I don't lay out, the plan and the guidelines and the expectations, it's like, well, just make it happen, and
read my mind.
So if you don't have that source of truth to draw from, you can't be as effective as you need to be. I think it's the same thing here. I mean, it's really being intentional and disciplined and building the right frameworks so that, when these things get created, that you're pulling from the right source of truth. And otherwise you're just going to end up spending more time when you could have just done it, without utilizing these tools. So it's a little bit of irony in that, we skipped some of those steps and now we're spending a lot more time fixing, than we are producing.
Yeah. And in certain areas, the trust factor, I know it's seeping into the legal world, the medical profession and things like that. I'm sure going to be much more trustworthy when I know that, somebody thought through that and it's their thoughts coming out versus generated by something else. Because I think we're all going to get stupider as time goes on, because we have to be able to think about this stuff too,
And especially if you're a parent of 4 kids.
Yeah.
You're definitely getting stupider.
The thoughts of Michael Russo do not necessarily reflect the thoughts of Jaci Russo, nor do they reflect the perspectives of the agency that Jaci runs named brandRUSSO. The thoughts of Michael Russo expressed here in this episode are the thoughts of Michael and Michael alone.
Very important.
I just feel like a disclaimer is necessary every once in a while because he gets off track.
These are pearls of wisdom, Jaci. This is
No doubt. No doubt. I think you are brilliant, but I do not agree with your assessment of AI making us stupider. I think it makes me smarter, better,
I
faster.
said it can. It can.
Yes.
It can. When we stop writing and thinking for ourselves, we have to be involved in the process.
No, I agree. I think it's discernment.
I think discipline is the key. It's
yes.
And we move so fast, and the reason we're moving so fast is we're trying to catch up. We want to make sure we stay ahead. We want to make sure we don't fall behind. But at the same time, it's like we got to make sure we're doing things right.
Absolutely.
I went through the NASCAR pit crew training facility up in, I think it's in North Carolina, and their motto is "slow is fast." So you've got each one of these individuals in this pit crew that all have a defined job, and they all have to do it within, I don't even know what they're at now. It's like 3-4 seconds or something. I mean, it's insane. And so they all have to do their job extremely fast, very intentional. They can't make a single mistake or, throw off the timing of everything. And so it's kind of like, that's kind of where I see this falling here, is like, we've got to move fast, but we've got to be very intentional in terms of what we're doing. Otherwise we're going to create a huge mess and a gigantic pileup on pit row. I don't know, but it's, that's always stuck with me. Just from seeing those guys work and, going through that exercise. It was really cool. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. On a side note, the kicker for Georgia is a kid from Lafayette, our hometown in Louisiana. He played baseball with my son. Yeah, he's there for the last couple of years now, but he's supposed to be, he's done really well for them, but like an NFL prospect now, I think.
That's awesome.
Woodring is his name.
Yep. That's awesome. Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah, it's been fun watching him, having watched him grow up, and now watching him playing, for one of the best SEC teams on Saturdays. It's like,
Yeah,
wait, I used to
that's
watch him in
neat.
Little League.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's
It's
really
kind of
cool.
nice. It is. It is cool. Yeah, we've had some really great athletic talents from Lafayette. Mondo Duplantis, who's the best pole jumper in the world right now. Um,
Mhm.
we've got a ton of NFL and MLB guys that have all come from Lafayette. And so it's kind of fun to watch that, small town Louisiana boy and some girls now
Mhm.
achieve these big dreams on big stages. It's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. I it always makes me laugh when I look up and think, how has it been an hour? We just started talking. Did we start late?
Yeah.
Did we start on the half hour and we're only 30 minutes in? But no, I went and checked. This is an hour long chat that we just had that flew by in about 3 minutes.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
right? It's crazy. So all I can do is say thank you for your generous time and sharing your knowledge and wisdom. I told you we wouldn't get through all the questions because we never
Yeah,
do.
no. Well, that's awesome. I appreciate it. I mean, I've never done, been a guest on these. I appreciate you reaching out, and
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, with everything, like, hopefully this brings value for you guys, and I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity, and it's been a lot of fun. I love talking to marketers because we just get it, and it's nice to get away and kind of talk shop with common folks. So I appreciate the time for sure.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you, Bryce. This was awesome. And to everybody listening, thank you for your time. And we hope this is beneficial to you. And we'll see you next week.
When the day is through.